Okay. So Smriti, your show, of course, has been a raging success. Earlier this year, we also saw you nominated at the Oscars, which was a phenomenal achievement. So congratulations for that. We were supposed to meet, in fact, earlier this year.
Right, thank you.
But people often don't realize how much work goes into building your career. And I know you've spent almost 20 years, I think, in this industry. It's not
Yeah.
that you had pre-existing connections or a road into the industry that made it any easier for you. So how did you choose to get into documentary filmmaking, and what was the journey like for you? Share that with us.
Yeah, definitely. I'm like an overnight success, 20 years in the making.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I started working in film when I was 16 years old. My first internship was right out of high school. And, I just kept going, producing films, working, trying to figure out my way, in the industry, just sort of making lateral moves for a long time, trying to figure out, where I would fit in. And then after I finished graduate school, I started to make my first documentary just because there was, we were in the economic recession. There was no money really in independent film anymore, which was where I had been working, for most of my career. And documentary is something where you can start, with very little money. You don't need any permission. You don't need a big crew. You don't need anything. You just need, a couple of people and a camera. So I started that along with my directing partner, Sarita. We came to Bombay and started working on a documentary, which eventually 7 years later became A Suitable Girl, the film called A Suitable Girl, which is my first film, my first documentary and the first film that I directed. That film was released in 2017 at the Tribeca Film Festival, and it won the best documentary director award there, which was a huge honor and a huge surprise, and really was sort of like the sort of kicking off point, I think for my career, at least like what it is today. um, After that, it's not like it happened immediately. It's not that film, though it did well, at festivals, and um, we released it on Amazon Prime. We actually didn't get any distribution offers. It's not like somebody came and said, oh, we're going to put your film in theaters. We're going to do all this marketing and everything. We didn't get any offers for the film because it was a foreign language documentary. So we essentially released it ourselves on Amazon Prime and in the US, and put $4,000 in Facebook, targeted Facebook ads, and really try to sort of prime the pump, as they say, with the algorithm on Amazon. Like the first week while the Facebook ads were running, we asked all of our friends to write reviews. We wanted to get at least 20 reviews, on Amazon, and then hope that the algorithm would take it from there, and it did. Now, 2 years later, the film has been streamed 2 million times on Amazon, and, has netted us more revenue than even our most ambitious distribution offer, could have, that we could have hoped for out of Tribeca. So that was a good lesson, for us, and that don't always have to wait, for someone to discover you. You can sort of take things into your own hands. And then subsequently, we sold the film internationally to Netflix. So it's now available in the rest of the world outside of the US on Netflix. But soon after A Suitable Girl premiered and started to do relatively well, I had a meeting at Netflix in the US with Bela Bajaria, who is somebody that I've known for a long time. She was a family friend, someone I admired growing up, and she was a top executive at Netflix. So Bela at that time was hired to essentially really kickstart Netflix's global content production, and India was a big priority for them. I think the service had just launched in India, like just the service. There wasn't yet an India office. There wasn't all of the content, like there wasn't the robust like content that you see now on Netflix at the time. So I pitched her this show about Seema from Mumbai, Seema Tavaria, who I had known for many years, and even prior to A Suitable Girl, I think through Ruchi Mami actually. she may not remember, but I think Seema Didi remembers because she doesn't forget anything. So she remembers that Ruchi Mami had sent her my bio data, way back in the day. And then I had met her, and I just, found, wasn't very convinced she was going to find me a husband, but I did think she was a very fascinating person, very fascinating person, and the world, that she's in terms of matchmaking and, all of that, her business, I thought was very fascinating. And we didn't, really get into a lot of it in A Suitable Girl, because that was really more focused on her daughter and, the sort of journeys of young women coming of age. So, when I was at Netflix and, in 2017, I pitched them, this idea of essentially a dating show, but from a Indian perspective, like with this matchmaker and her clients. And they immediately were interested, immediately wanted to move forward on it. It was the easiest pitch I've ever done. It was like beginner's luck, totally spoiled me, because no pitch has ever been that easy since. But they basically were ready to move on it, right away. Of course, like, in Hollywood terms, it's like you get the green light on day one, and then 2 years later you're in production, because it takes that long to like do all of the contracting, do all of the development, all of that stuff. It takes forever. So that's basically how it started.
How it happened. So it's interesting because A Suitable Girl has a very different tonality. It has, it's a little bit more serious, more documentary, and Indian Matchmaking, of course, is a lot more sort of lighter, more reality. Was that a conscious choice then, from what you're saying, to do it? It wasn't that Netflix approached you to make it in a lighter vein. It was something you wanted to do?
No, I mean, it was both. They definitely said they wanted something that was very different from A Suitable Girl. They wanted something that was fit more into their sort of dating, docu-series type of format. At that time, they had a lot of success with Queer Eye. That was like their big show that was doing really well, which is like a makeover, makeover show. And after that, of course, like Dating Around released, and some of these other like very sort of elevated, glossy dating reality shows that sort of felt, different from like, The Bachelor or Splitsvilla or whatever, we see on TV, but so more elevated and more docu-style than that, but still, with sort of the fun, and the gloss of those types of shows. And this is not something, I was definitely interested in that, because those are the shows, frankly, that I love to watch, on TV, and I loved watching those shows on Netflix. And I think it's a much easier, ask of a wider audience, to say, watch this fun dating show, than watch this serious, tearjerker documentary, so I think it's just a different, appetite. And, we were at that time collectively with Netflix, we're really interested in trying to break open, the documentary market in India in terms of commercial. Of course, there's a very thriving independent documentary scene in terms of, for commercial consumption, like regular people who would watch, primetime serials or watch, whatever, Netflix or Amazon. We wanted to see if we can make a docu-series that they would watch. So that's how we really made, Indian Matchmaking was for that audience. And it was very different than anything I'd done before. And I had a lot of help with I was partnered with a great production company, US-based production company called IPC, and an amazing showrunner who is very experienced in this type of format. And so, I sort of brought the sort of cultural knowledge and the sort of specificity about this world, and a bit of like documentary filmmaking style, and partnered with people who had a lot of experience in this sort of glossy reality TV style. And so that's sort of how it all came together.
Yeah, because it is a beautiful mix, in the sense that it's very natural, done so seamlessly. I spoke with Ankita, for instance, one of the protagonists, and she said that you were on shoots all the time. You were actually expecting at the time, that you were working around the clock, and that you actually let them be completely natural, and it wasn't contrived in any way. Were you trying to, is the point to also just have a very accurate, neutral depiction? Because one of the biggest criticisms is, why wasn't there more of a point made on X or Y? And, we can come to that later, but, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, definitely. I think, of all the praise and all the criticism there are very few people, almost no one that I've heard of that says the show is inaccurate, you know.
Oh,
So, and I, you know, I
yeah.
mean, take that as you will, but I do, and of course, look, there's no way to fully represent, you know, 1.5 billion Indians around the world. You know, there's always, you know, this is a very, you know, narrow perspective, a very narrow slice of life when it comes to the, you know, matchmaking, marriage, you know, arranged marriage process, you know, in India. And it's, and it was a conscious choice. We, you know, we cast, you know, the people on the show because we wanted people who are going to feel honest and authentic and completely themselves, you know, as much as possible, you know, when you have cameras on you. And we let, you know, we knew there was like a portion of the process that was predictable, which was like essentially the beginning third. You know, we knew that we were going to do, you know, have some sort of background, you know, on each of the participants, you know, show what their lives are like, their families, etc. We knew they were going to meet Seema Didi, you know, we knew they were going to be getting some biodata from Seema Didi, and then they were going to go on some sort of a meeting, you know, first meeting. After that, it was every story for itself. You know, every story just sort of wound up in its own place. And we followed it as naturally and organically as we possibly could. Of course, you know, it's never going to be 100% neutral. You know, we have a big production, you know, and we had to do some degree of coordination, you know, with our participants and say, oh, okay, you're planning on doing this. You're planning on going out a second time with this person. Can we send you, you know, a home camera? Can you record that conversation? You know, are you going to, you know, call it off with this person? Can you wait until we get there for our shoot so we can film that? Like, there's sort of always that sort of coordination that's required, but nothing in the show was manipulated. You know, we never told anyone, you know, we need this date to go badly because, you know, we don't have enough drama in this episode, or we need, you know, we didn't never thought, okay, this person is going to be the villain, or this person is going to be the hero or the victim or whatever. It was all very just, you know, whatever each participant, you know, whatever their natural personality was, whatever the natural course of their experience was, that is what we tried to capture.
Okay, I like that you were, okay, there's a question from Anupam, but Anupam, I think she's kind of answered that it's, you know, it's kind of making the documentary style a little bit more easily consumable to a larger audience, but, you know.
Yeah. But not fiction, just to be clear, it's not fiction at all. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, you touched upon the process, and I'd love to hear more in terms of how you chose the characters, for example, how long it took. You know, you mentioned the challenge of coordinating. You shot across multiple locations. You know, so while Seema's kind of held it together and become the overnight star, you know, we also have your Aparna and you know, Pradyuman and some of the others that have also become household names.
Yeah, definitely. So the casting process was really difficult. That's part of what took so long to get production off the ground, because there is no real model, you know, for a show like this. It's very different, you know. So we started by going through, you know, all 500 people on Seema Didi's client list, literally calling each and every family, you know, and asking, like, are you interested, like trying to explain what we were doing, asking, are you interested, you know, and 99% of the time it was a no, like immediate no. So, but you know, when there was an opening or there was some interest, then we tried to explain, you know, what we were doing, that it's sort of like A Suitable Girl. It's a documentary sort of like A Suitable Girl, but not completely like A Suitable Girl, but it's not like, you know, Swayamvar or The Bachelor or anything that you see on TV. It's somewhere in between that. It's still something very different. And it was, you know, there was definitely some people, obviously, you know, as anybody on this call knows, that typically this is a very private process, you know, that you don't really, most people are not really, you know, interested in doing in front of cameras. So the people that we found ultimately are people who were just up for the adventure. And I think they had, you know, they sort of had something that they wanted to say about the process, you know, through their own experiences and through the show. So yeah, and I think we wound up, you know, with like really an incredible cast. We tried really, like, within the people that we had, to present as many diverse points of view around the idea of marriage as possible, and as many different types of backgrounds, you know, as possible. So not all just, you know, like 26-year-old Marwadi conservative, whatever, type of family. We tried to show like we have, a divorced single mother. We have, people who are sort of running away from the idea of marriage, people who are like desperately trying to opt into it, people who are under extreme pressure but are ambivalent about it, all different types of, perspectives around marriage, and also like personal backgrounds, socioeconomic, et cetera, as much as possible. Now, of course, it's still a relatively narrow field, because that is the reality of this world. That's the reality of Seema Didi's work, and we didn't want to put anyone on the show that wouldn't authentically be somebody she would work with, that's a client of hers. So we didn't want to do any stunt casting or like try to put somebody in there just to sort of have this person or that person.
Yeah. Okay, I sorry, lost my train of thought. No, but I was going to ask you a couple of things on that. Yeah, the ending. We heard that Sheila Nevins at HBO, who's apparently a legend in her own right, actually made you change the ending. Was that for? That was for a Suitable Girl, I think, or was that?
No, that was for St. Louis Superman. Yeah.
For St. Louis Superman. Okay.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
We'll come back to that later. But
yeah.
Was there anything that you had to change? Like you said, you kept it neutral. But for example, was there a way? Because one of the criticisms is that, like we were discussing, that it just perpetuates certain prejudices. So was there a way to perhaps weave them in? Let's say if we had a fewer characters, but spent a little bit more time on. For instance, I think it's Mansha, one of the characters' cousins, and then she seemed to kind of say, "Look, I'm this go-getter. I would never do something like this." Maybe just have her raise a few questions. I simply ask in terms of the process, like, were there things that you thought about which were difficult as a director to leave out? Like it might have been something you thought about, but just couldn't really pack it all in, or Netflix didn't mandate that those bits were kept in,
I mean, honestly, it was more of a conscious choice to leave in the more unsavory, aspects that we knew were going to draw critique, like the mentions of fairness, the mentions of caste, etc. It was a conscious choice to leave that in, because that's the reality. That's the reality of our society, and it would be, I think, anybody here who watched a show like this and didn't see any mention of fair, didn't see any mention of, slim, trim, tall, etc., like would immediately be able to say, well, somebody edited something out, because this is the very reality of the nature of the conversations that happen around, marriage and matchmaking. And there was really no point in trying to, sanitize this world or make it look more progressive and more inclusive than it actually is. It's better to sort of leave things as they are and then let, the dialogue, happen, amongst the viewers. And then it's really up to us to really say, well, we don't like this, what this is mirror is reflecting of us, or these aspects of it that we're seeing. So we have to change it as a society. But it's not my role as a filmmaker to, especially as a NRI, to come in and say, put my thumb on the scale and say, pass judgment, either pass judgment or, manipulate sort of reality, for what it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think, and again, like the show was made primarily for an Indian audience, Indian and Indian diaspora audience. So, I don't think there needed to be an inherent critique. That critique comes from the eyes of the viewers,
Right. It's interesting because okay, there are going to be tons of questions on these characters, so we'll get to that.
Yeah.
For real, let's not. But it's interesting because I have friends from all over the world who are messaging about this show. So even though it was made for a South Asian audience or an Indian audience, it's actually being enjoyed everywhere, and it's opened up this conversation worldwide, where I think on one hand you have people who are just enjoying it and seeing it for what it is, and others who are raising questions. I think some of the Indian community, they're not necessarily saying it's not true, but they're kind of saying this isn't helping, it's perpetuating it, it's making it look cool. Would you agree? Like a Seema auntie is not going to say that. She did say once on the show, for example, she did say it's not fair to judge someone on being divorced, for example, but I think they're feeling that it's just perpetuating some of these things.
So I think again, that is the reality of matchmaking and marriage and our attitude towards marriage, you know, in India and abroad, and also in non-Indian, in Western culture as well. It's just, you know, more hidden in Western culture. Any dating show you watch of, you know, that's like a Western style dating show perpetuates all kinds of, you know, gender stereotypes and,
True.
you know, all kinds of things. So one, I don't think, you know, I don't necessarily think, I think we've actually done more than any other dating show that's come out prior, you know, in any genre, in any community, to sort of, you know, at least frame some of the
Yeah.
the you know, the aspects of it that are not so progressive, you know, and include them rather than hide them, you know, and pretend they don't exist, or let them be implicit. You know, I think we just sort of let it all out, you know,
Yeah.
more so than other dating shows. But really beyond that, I don't, you know, it's the job of society to change what we see in society. It's not the job of a TV show. You know, this isn't a scripted show, you know, where I can sort of control and I can project what I want the world to be, you know. It's my
Yeah.
job to reflect reality. And, you know, that's
That,
what we did, you
yeah.
know.
Okay, a couple of questions coming in. So someone wants to know two different questions. One is, where do you start if you want to become a filmmaker? So it's a little broad, but perhaps, you know, maybe you could share a motivation to join that industry. And I'm going to ask you on the Oscars in a bit. And the other question is just to share perhaps your favorite moments on set, whether it was funny or serious or scary, maybe something went wrong, like any anecdotes from the filming.
Yeah, definitely. How to start in film is a huge question. First of all, be prepared for the long haul. You know, it might take you 20 years to become an overnight success. You know, but you know, I think if you love what you do and you find community, if you find like-minded people, other filmmakers, you know, to collaborate with and to commiserate with, it makes the journey, you know, a bit more pleasant and easier. And just, I want to clarify, you know, something that you mentioned earlier, you know, when you said that I didn't really have any access points or, you know, anything into the industry. I actually did. You know, my father was a very respected, you know, film director, a very respected person, and though
Okay.
we took very different paths in our careers, you know, I
Yeah.
definitely benefit from the goodwill, you know, that he generated over his career in his lifetime. You know, inevitably, if I meet any South Asian person in Hollywood, and even in the course of making Indian Matchmaking, I think one of the reasons that, whether it was Seema Didi or some of the participants, where, you know, a lot of people had sort of some trust in me, is because they knew I was, you know, Jagmohan Mundra's daughter, and, you know, I was,
Okay.
there was going to be
Apologies for
at
that.
least some genetic integrity. Yeah. No, I
Apologies
just don't
for
want to
that.
take more credit than I'm due, you know,
That's
so.
exactly what I meant, that not everyone's aware of that. In fact, you know, that question was given to me by another, you know, very respected documentary filmmaker in the
Yeah.
healthcare space. So it goes to show that, you know, that you gained all that respect very much on your
No, I
own.
appreciate it. I appreciate it. But I definitely stand on the shoulders of my father, and definitely also Mr. Ramesh Damani, even though I'll never admit it to him. It never hurts to drop his name. um,
See that
so
question. Go on, go on. No, go on. I think, yeah. I
yeah,
think
and what was the,
without giving you time to answer them. Yeah.
yeah, sure. No, and then the other question I think was some of the highlights, you know, behind the
Yes.
scenes highlights. Honestly, the weirdest thing was filming these first dates, you know, these meetings with the participants, because we had to figure out how to let it happen as naturally as possible, because the first meeting is always so awkward,
Yeah.
and then we were going to be there with a 15-person crew and two cameras, so we had to, you know, everywhere we filmed,
Yeah.
we had a system where we would have earpieces so we can hear what was happening, production could hear what was happening, and then we had only our camera people sort of on the floor, as we say, which is, on the floor means sort of in the line of sight, you know, of the participants. The rest of us were, you know, always hidden somewhere, and sometimes if it was like a small restaurant, it was literally, we would be like crouched behind the bar, you know, out of sight, you know, 15 of us, like I don't know what, like, elves or something, trying to like manage the production while not interfering too much in sort of the natural chemistry, of the meeting. But it was always, a little bit strange to try to figure out how to do that, as naturally as possible.
So, okay, we'll continue with this, but I do want to just sort of digress for a moment and talk about St. Louis Superman, because you of course were nominated for the Oscars, and someone's also asked, did you enjoy making that more, or did you enjoy doing Indian Matchmaking? I don't, but that must have been a very different experience. And also actually going to the Oscars, realizing you were nominated. I mean, where were you when you got the news? What was the experience like?
It was an absolutely insane experience. I was actually in Sierra Leone when the nominations were announced. I was filming on a beach, and we all took a 5-minute break so I could watch the nominations on my phone. Standing like practically in the water, with very little signal. And I was watching it on a live stream, and because of the sort of bad cell reception where we were filming, I actually missed the moment where our names were announced. So I never actually saw it. It like froze, right before that it froze. So the way that I found out was because I started seeing all the text messages coming in saying congratulations, congratulations. And to this day I haven't actually seen the video of when our names were announced. Maybe when I'm an old lady or something, I'll go back and and watch that again. But yeah, it was just a really amazing experience. I think at that point we had like been on this whole journey, and we had been shortlisted. So we had gone from 5,000 documentaries made, or whatever, some ridiculous number of documentaries made that year, to the 100 that were shortlisted. And then to the 100 that were qualified, because you have to like meet some metrics to qualify even for consideration, to the 10 that were shortlisted. So at that point, when the nominations came, we knew we had a 50-50 chance of getting nominated. But it was still like a very, it's like you're never prepared, for like to hear that you're nominated for an Oscar. It's just the most surreal,
Wow.
most amazing experience, and the most amazing feeling. It was, I wish I could have captured that feeling in a bottle, because yeah.
Did you attend the evening? What surprised you?
Oh, yeah.
Evening, any revelations about Oscar night?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we all went. Our whole, we had a big crew attending. It was our immediate sort of myself, my directing partner Sammy Khan, Bruce Franks Jr., who was the main participant, the star of the film, our producer Posi Tang, and our co-producer Cheyenne Tan. We all went sort of together as a unit, and then we also had like our like so many people from MTV, people from Al Jazeera, who commissioned the film, our like significant others and family. Bruce's mother came, all of these people, who were there and at the Oscars. So we were sitting in sort of the main, the main four of us, who were the directors and producers and star of the film, were sitting in the main like nominee section. And then we had like in the orchestra, section, we had the all of our, my husband and, Sammy's wife and, Bruce's mother, all of the other people, that were involved in the film from MTV and Al Jazeera. And then we had a viewing party at a hotel. We had invited like all of the people from our crew. Al Jazeera very generously flew in like all of the people from our crew, other sort of significant people that really were instrumental on the journey to Los Angeles. And they were at our hotel. There was a viewing party happening. And then at our, at my sort of uncle's house in LA, there was a viewing party with all of my family happening. So it was a very exciting, a very exciting night. But being there was really, I mean, it was surreal. It was completely surreal. The most surreal part is that once you're a nominee, you're sort of in a, you walk a separate red carpet, you're in a sort of separate section, of the hall and everything. So if you're there, even though nobody knows me, like, from Adam, like by face, but they know that if I'm there, it's because I'm a nominee, so, everyone's excited to talk to you, Martin Scorsese and Bong Joon-ho and Greta Gerwig and, like all of these people, like who are, and this year in particular was like so many legends, so many filmmaking legends were nominated. So, we got to just, like really like chatted up with everybody. Everybody was really excited for us. A lot of people had actually seen our film. So it was just a really exciting
Oh,
experience. And even losing was exciting, because as soon as our category was announced and we lost, we went to the bar, and at the bar was all the other losers, which includes like Martin Scorsese and like
that's
all
good.
of these like Kathy Bates and like all of these amazing people. That was the losers table at the bar. So I'm like, okay, if I'm in the company of losers, I think I'm doing okay.
That's amazing. This is a good time to bring in Mr. Damani's question. He's saying, what would be more important, acclaim or popularity?
Acclaim. For me, acclaim, absolutely. I mean, and acclaim, I guess that's a very personal thing, because I think acclaim for me is a film that I know is 100% mine, that I feel completely proud of, artistically, that I feel uh, is exploring something, that's personal, in a way um, that is rigorous artistically, I guess you could say. And sometimes that acclaim comes with, awards nominations and things like that. And sometimes it's like something like A Suitable Girl, where it's just, young women, who saw the film from all over the world came and said, oh, you really like reflected, my inner experience in such a deep way, like in a way that I could never articulate or talk about. And I think that's like really amazing. Of course, like, at this week, like in the last week or two, I've experienced a level of like public success, that I've never experienced in my entire life or my entire career. And, that is of course really fun, and, really, it's good. It's a huge boost for my career, but it's also very sort of disorienting, and it's, it's important, whether it comes to awards, Academy Awards type stuff, or this type of, commercial success. It's important to remember that, um, that, what the public giveth, the public instantly can take it away. So I like to just keep an even keel. I'm not really, I turned off all my social media notifications. I've, like told my family, like, only share the memes. I don't want to read like any of the reviews. I don't want to read, I do of course engage with some of the critique and things like that. But in terms of like the sort of, praise and all of that, like I'd rather just keep it out of sight, and focus on the next thing, just focus on the work and keep a very even thing, because the next thing, it's like a roller coaster, careers are, it's like a roller coaster, and it's like 1 minute you're on the top and everything feels amazing, and then you never know the next minute when you'll be at the bottom and the things you're doing are not working. And I'd rather just sort of keep an even tone, to all of it, and take it in stride.
Well, I've read a whole bunch of your interviews, and I think you're doing a great job at that. I mean, you have held yourself very well in many of those, at least the ones that I've read. How do you, like, again, just wondering in terms of, both A Suitable Girl and St. Louis Superman, it's very strong issues that you chose. Are they issues close to your heart? Or is it just what kind of came along at that time among other ideas that you may have had? How do you, and I ask this also from the creator standpoint, go about actually finalizing the concept that you want to go ahead with?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely both those films are extremely, personal, and on subjects that are very important to me. Of course, A Suitable Girl is the most personal film I've ever made and might ever make. It was a direct reflection of my personal experiences, not just externally. I think Indian Matchmaking is a reflection of sort of the external world, of marriage and matchmaking, and sort of what the implications are of that. But A Suitable Girl was a deeply internal perspective, on all of that, and sort of a deep dive into the pressure that all of our traditions and these institutions put on women. And it's something that I really experienced personally, and I sort of work through my feelings about that over the course of making that film, along with my directing partner Sarita Krana. She had very similar experiences, and it was a similar journey for us. St. Louis Superman was, for me, a desire to sort of find meaning again, in American democracy, you know, and in American politics, you know, I think especially after 2016, when the whole world felt topsy-turvy, you know, everything, the sort of idealized, naive vision, you know, of American democracy, you know, and values that I had, you know, for years sort of disappeared in front of my eyes. And I wanted to sort of find it again, you know, but find it in a real and honest way. And that search led me to Bruce. And, you know, I think, you know, to answer your other question in terms of how do you like finalize a concept, you never finalize a concept, you know, especially not in documentary. It's an evolution, it's a journey, it's an exploration. You know, you start with an idea, and inevitably, if you're doing your job right as a filmmaker, inevitably over the course of making the film, the film you thought was making disappears, and then something much better and more real and honest emerges, because that is an indication that you're learning and you're not just projecting sort of your preconceived notions, you know, on a subject. So yeah, of course, you know, we start with sort of a loose idea of what we think the film will be, but you know, I've learned over the course of my career to always be ready to abandon that, you know, in favor of something more authentic.
Sure. Just talking about the document format, someone's also asked a question on how much of it is, I mean, how much do you need writing or scripting in this kind of format? Because a lot of it must be.
There's no writing and no scripting at all, you know. I mean, that's not true of like game shows and more sort of traditional reality shows. There is a degree of, you know, more manipulation there, but anything that any remotely resembles documentary, there isn't, and especially anything that I do, there is no scripting involved at all. They say in documentary, the editing is the writing process, because that's when you're going through all of the footage that you've captured and putting it together in a way that presents a narrative. Okay. And there, of course, there is a degree of selection. Yeah.
There is Megha is saying thank you for that. She also had a question, which is a little long. I'll trying to read it out. If for a brand like Netflix that's so invested in global content, I've heard a lot about the pitch process. Do you just pitch an idea, or is it a more detailed outline? I'm not sure I get the last bit about her question, but I think she's just trying to understand the process and whether to just throw ideas at them or go at them with a much more detailed pitch.
Yeah, I think I know what she's asking. So it varies. Okay. If you remember, I mentioned beginner's luck with Indian Matchmaking. Yes. That was, you know, a rare, you know, extremely rare instance where I went in for a general meeting with no pitch materials, no, you know, practice rehearsal, nothing, and just pitched verbally with no supporting materials at all, and sold the show immediately. That never happens, almost never happens. You know, usually there's lots of preparation. In fact, I'm going to be pitching a new series next week, you know, for which we've done, you know, 2 months of preparation. We've researched, we've written, you know, a pitch deck with detailed outline of like what the world is, what the story is, where it could potentially go, all the access that we have. We cut together what we call a Sizzle Reel, which is essentially, you know, you either shoot some materials or you find existing materials and put together like a 5 to 10 minute, you know, visual presentation that shows like what the tone and the story of your film is going to, or your series or your film is going to be. And then you take that to Netflix, you know, or any of these other platforms. And then they look at that and determine whether they think they might be interested in the project. And if they're interested based on the materials, then you have a chance to actually pitch them, you know, directly in the room. So it's usually a very tough process with a very low success rate. You know, I probably sell, you know, one thing out of every 10 that I pitch, if I'm lucky. You know, it's very difficult to sort of sell a show, and you know, and it really, and then, you know, of course that changes. Like the more sort of known you become as a filmmaker, you know, the more these companies are more willing to just trust your vision. But if you're emerging, you know, then it's really more, you have to really prove on paper that you know what you're doing, you know what your story is, you know where it's going to go. And that is definitely a big difference between, you know, independent filmmaking, where you can you're free to pursue, you know, the story and change and adapt your story as many times as you want, for as long as you want, versus pitching to a big platform where once they buy your show and they give you money to make it, they expect it by a certain date and a certain time, and they expect what they paid for. So
gosh, well, you know, I think documentary format is also a lot more, there's a lot more appreciation for it, perhaps in markets like the US and UK, in terms of the production side of it. I think when you're actually pitching here in India, and I'm not sure if you can shed some light on that, but I feel they're a little bit more resistant to it here. Like if you went to Netflix in India, they may not be as open to it as they might be in some of the other cities.
Hopefully that's changed now. Hopefully that's changed now. But yeah, I mean, this is like, I think Indian Matchmaking might be the first.
Do this Indian Matchmaking them right here, right? I mean, it's still on the same platform, but
yeah, I mean, when we first, started, when I first pitched Indian Matchmaking, like I said, there was no Netflix India to pitch to. Since then, I have been developing another series with the Netflix Asia Pacific team, and working very closely with Netflix India, which is another docuseries. And yeah, they are very interested, in expanding. Documentary, premium documentary is like the biggest growth area as far as like many of these OTTs are concerned in India. Like they're in India, documentary plus India is like their sort of biggest growth target, because one documentaries are comparatively inexpensive to produce, and as Indian Matchmaking has shown, can have, if they're done right, can have the same sort of impact as scripted content. But something had to be the first one to sort of prime the market. And it's like it was the same thing in the US 10 years ago, where in the US 10 years ago, documentary was seen as something educational, something like only PBS did, and very sort of like elite intellectual type of thing. But Netflix and other platforms have really sort of expanded that format to really become like what we call docutainment. It's really like stuff that you would watch and target towards people who just are interested in sort of mass entertainment. So that's like been a big change in the US, and I see that change coming now in India too.
Amazing.
But there is a high bar. I mean, it does have to be entertaining, because just because documentaries are now becoming more popular in the US or India doesn't mean that people are going to watch like any type of documentary, and it might be hard. It still might be, you still have to think of your audience as an audience, and you still have to think of them as watching TV at 8 o'clock, at night, on their couch after a long day, and they want to be entertained. So you still have to fulfill that mandate. Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask you about the, the ending. Well, because I know you showed Akshay getting Roka, but apparently they never got married. That was as close to closure as I got, right? Because you don't really, you can only kind of use that, okay, maybe Nadia was happy with so-and-so, maybe Aparna got with so-and-so. If you had a chance to go back and do anything differently, would you, I mean, it's a fun question, not meant to be, I'm not trying to criticize the ending, but would you have done anything differently?
I don't know if it would have been possible, honestly. And of course, I would have loved, more. I would have loved, it was a, difficult thing for us too while we were in production and in edit. We would have loved to see more, of the steps of the courtship of the different couples, but that's reality. It's like things go at the pace that they go, and I hope that at least that is a clue to people that we didn't manipulate anything, because if we could manipulate something, it would have been to have more closure for some of the participants. But that's life. It's like some people continue to date after our production window was finished and then split up, months later. Some people we followed each story, as much of each story as we could in the time that we had to film, so, but there is on YouTube now, there's like a Where Are They Now bonus episode on YouTube where all of the cast sort of talk about, what happened on the show and where they are now. So if you want closure, you can watch that.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Is there a season 2? We asked Seema Auntie today, and she said it all depends on Smriti and Netflix. So is there a season 2?
I wish it depends on me. It does not depend on me whatsoever. It depends entirely on Netflix. So we don't know. That's the honest truth, is we don't know.
Okay, Sudipta, do you want to ask your question now? Because I know
yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Should I go?
Hello. Uh,
I'm just gonna get
sorry, ma'am. You carry on.
Okay, give us a second. Go ahead, Samantha.
Okay, hi, Smriti.
Hi.
Okay, so, when I watch this show, it kind of, how do I put it? It's like, yeah, it kind of, like, Abha very correctly said that, it perpetuates a lot of, stereotypes that we already have in the market, okay, in our society. And it's like when I was watching your show, I kind of realized, and it's something that I've always pretty much lived with, is that if I was in the Indian market, in the Indian matrimony market, I would have never got married because I'm not tall, I'm not, fair, I'm not the homely variety. So, I think in many ways, this show has also opened up old wounds, okay? Because I'm kind of meeting a lot of my friends and, a lot of my contemporaries, in fact, teenagers, who suddenly have once again become very aware of, their body shape, their physical attributes. And, that there seems to be this little dichotomy of thoughts, obviously, which is always there, between them, the parents, and, the societal pressures. So while I understand that as a documentary filmmaker or as a filmmaker, your job is to present reality the way it is, but does it at any point in time, do these questions also come into your mind?
Yeah, I mean, of course they do. Otherwise, I wouldn't have spent 10 years, making films on this subject. and 10 years prior to that, I lived through it, very much so. The very same, sense of pressure, the very same sense of insecurity, the very same, like shock at hearing, people say things like, oh, she's fair, but she's too fat, or she's too tall, or, like she's she's never going to settle down because she works in the movie business and whatever, of course, I've heard all of those things, over the course of my own experience, in going through this process and being exposed to this process. And I saw that time and again, with not only in A Suitable Girl, but Indian Matchmaking too. But I think the commentary, if there's any commentary that the show provides, it's like, take a step back and think about who you're rooting for. You're rooting for someone like Vyasar, who would be immediately rejected, if he was only seen on biodata. You were rooting for someone like Ankita, who would like be immediately rejected if she was meeting a family, in whatever, some 5-star hotel, whatever kind of situation. You're rooting for someone like Nadia, who like wouldn't even be considered, with her sort of Guyanese and, presumably like lower caste background, wouldn't even be considered by most family. So I think that if there's any commentary on the show, it's that we as a society have to look beyond the biodata. We have to look beyond these like very narrow, very superficial, boxes, or we're going to miss like the actual, people that are going to be great partners, and again, there's a range. Everybody's priorities are different when it comes to marriage. Everybody's values are different when it comes to marriage. Not everybody's priorities are the same, but I wanted to show that, like, if your priorities are to find, a fair and lovely girl, from a good family, you can have that. The system can provide that for you, as it did for, say, someone like Akshay. But, like, what is, maybe that will make some people happy, fulfill some, objective, but like, there's also other people who have different objectives, who want different things out of life. And, they too can fit in the system, because the system itself is evolving. It's not perfect. It's not fully there yet, but it's evolving. And I think it's evolved a lot in one generation. One thing I will say for all the criticism is, I think people should also sit back and say, what was our parents' generation like? What options did they have, and how much has changed in just one generation? And of course, like, we still hold on to a lot of regressive ideas and patriarchal, sexist ideas. Of course we do. We do that in the West as well, but it's our job as a society to not just sort of shame people for believing in those things, but to understand where that's coming from. That's coming from generations, of internalized pressure and internalized ideology. It's coming from, generations of colonialism, and it exists all over the world, and I think just because we have had, someone like me, I've had the privilege, I've had the benefit of, having very supportive parents. I've have the privilege of being, financially independent, educated. I can live outside of India. I can exist, live in a big city. I can exist outside of that sort of pressure bubble, so I don't have to ascribe to those regressive ideals. I can evolve out of them, if I so choose, and find my own path in life. Not everybody has that privilege. Not everybody has that benefit or that space to just reject everything that their parents want for them, reject their families, and forge their own path in life. And I think it's horribly judgmental, honestly, to assume that everybody has the same privilege that you do and can evolve at the same rate you have been able to evolve. I'm not saying you, I just mean people, who are levying those critiques. So I think it's important to sort of allow that space, for our full range of experiences when it comes to marriage, because it's a very complicated topic that comes with a lot of baggage, has many different points of view, and we try to present that as accurately as possible in the show. And, it's up to us now as a society to really push, to move away from the things that we don't like, but be tolerant, of people who don't really have that space yet, to just run away from it. I remember, growing up, the thing that bothered me the most, was I would my non-Indian friends, would always say to me, when I was like a teenager and everything, when I was, couldn't do certain things, I wasn't allowed to like go on dates, or I wasn't allowed to, do sleepovers or socialize, with my friends in certain ways, etc. And, my non-Indian friends would always say to me, well, why don't you just tell your parents, like, just don't listen to them, and even, especially when I got older, in college, it's like, well, you're an adult now. Why do you have to listen to what your parents say? Just, tell them to screw off. Like, these are the things that I would hear. And I'd be like, I can't do that. That's not the culture I come from. Like, I don't, still to this day, as a 40-year-old woman, like, I don't do that. You know what I mean? And I think it's very reductive to assume that everybody can do that or wants to do that. So that's the one thing I will say about the critique. Of course, I completely agree and feel it's valid that many of our ideals are regressive, and we have shown a lot of that, in our series. We've not, hidden any of that. But I do also think that people should have a bit more tolerance for people who don't have the space, to really run away from deeply ingrained ideas.
Okay, I think we've just got a few minutes to go, so I want to give.
I want to ask some question, ma'am.
Go ahead, Prem. We just have a few minutes. One very quick question.
Hi, yes, ma'am. Hello, Smriti, ma'am.
Hello.
Ma'am, I want to become a filmmaker, ma'am, and I want to do script my scripting. Ma'am, please guide me the beginners of filmmaker, and please explain. I want to know about what is the artistic movie, or what do you mean understanding by art movie type.
Prem, I think that's a tough question to answer because there's so many different ways, to make films. You can make a film with a camera phone, technically. All you need is, some type of a camera and some type of a script and some bodies, to act if that's the type of film you're making. And I think the real, to be a filmmaker, the real important thing is to constantly be working on your craft. Whatever, if you want to be a director, find ways to direct, even if the only camera you have available to you is your camera phone, and the only, talent you have available are people in your family. Just keep working on your craft. If you're a writer, write every day, do as much as you can, watch films. That's a great way of learning. That's something I learned from my father. My father never went to film school. He never had any formal education in terms of filmmaking. He didn't have any contacts in the film industry, and he figured out a way. He just watched a lot of films. He read a lot of books about filmmaking. He started writing his own scripts, and he did anything he could to try to get to get ahead in his career, including you know, working in the industry in jobs that he didn't really necessarily want to do and that were not, you know, at the top of the ladder, you know, filmmaking. So I think that's what it takes. And it's really hard. Like, look, I had a lot of privilege and a lot of access and a lot of opportunity, and it took me 20 years to get there. So just be prepared for a very long journey. But if you love what you do, and if you love films, watching films and making films, it can be a very pleasant journey. And then in terms of what makes for an art film, you know, I think that's, you know, just like beauty, it's definitely in the eye of the beholder. You know, film, the only job of film, again, something that my dad taught me, the only job of a film or any type of film or TV show or anything is to touch somebody's heart. You know, if you're touching people's hearts, whatever tools you use to do that, you know, is at the discretion of the filmmaker, and it varies.
That's beautifully said. And we just have time for one last question. So Monica, I want to let you ask your question.
Yeah, you know, I just wanted to, it was a comment really. Do you think that people who actually agreed to get filmed were also the ones who were the most stereotyped and maybe were looking for some kind of an attention in a warped kind of way? Because, you know, if a lot of people are serious about it, it might be a very private thing to do, to go looking for a life partner.
Also, to
Definitely.
add to that,
Go ahead.
it was it seemed to be driven by the younger generation overseas, like a Vyasar or whoever, versus families back home in India.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, of course, I think if someone's, you know, willing to do this process with cameras on them, they are not shy, you know, for the most part. And, you know, I wouldn't say it's like superficial. I think it's, I think maybe they might have had something to say, and, you know, and maybe it was subconscious, but I think they had something that they wanted to say about this process, you know, in a way that's hard to do, you know, without a public platform to do it. I also think a lot of people weren't quite, you know, it was not, we've really sort of created a new model, you know, for this type of a show, you know, and I think a lot of people looked at my prior work, you know, especially A Suitable Girl, and felt that, you know, I was somebody who had some integrity and some in the way that I approach things, and some experience, you know, with this particular topic. So that was, you know, a degree of comfort, you know, and also that I'd been through the process myself. So there was maybe a degree of comfort with that, you know, and honestly, I think, you know, I don't think that anybody on the show is, maybe it's because, you know, I only cast people on shows if I have love and respect for them, but I don't see anybody on the show as being superficial. I think they were all very earnest about their desire to find a life partner, and I don't think anyone would look at like someone like Vyasar or someone like Nadia or, you know, or Ankita and look at them and say these are superficial people, you know, who have superficial needs. I think they have something that very vital and important to say, something that they wanted to sort of talk about publicly that maybe they weren't able to before with their families or within their society. I think even someone like, you know, Preeti Didi and Akshay, you know, I think they represent, you know, maybe the more conservative, more conservative side of things. But there was a lot of things like we couldn't film with them. You know, it took a while before, you know, there were a lot of all the other girls that he met, you know, we weren't allowed to film with. So it's not that they were completely willing to, you know, like let cameras in, and of course it's a two-way street. You know, the other party also has to be willing to allow us to film, you know, which was part of the complication of making the show. But ultimately, I think they were very sincere, you know, absolutely sincere about their needs and their wants and their process. But they also came to it, you know, with a degree of humor, you know, and openness. And, you know, I feel, you know, I feel bad. I think it's sad that that's been misinterpreted, you know, on so many levels, and people are so quick to judge them, when sort of this kind of thing happens, you know, in all of our families, you know, and they were just open about it and they approached it with humor, but they're actually a very close-knit family. And, you know, like so many parents, you know, Preeti Didi just wants the best for her son as she knows it, you know, I mean, and that's not to say she's 100% right. It's not to say that people of my generation are 100% right. You know, the truth is always somewhere in between.